January, but I love it. It felt that way to me too, because before I watched it, I was like, oh, like, I was gonna say, you already never watched it, like.
Okay. So, it's good to be back. Sorry, I was absent last week. It was totally out of my control. But, you know, it happens. So hopefully you don't feel like you missed a lot because I submitted videos and it was totally a review thing. So, the test is going to be Friday this week.
I was kind of thinking it was gonna be today. I was like, oh, that'll be fun.
Today?
Yeah, because it's a Wednesday and we normally have things on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, so that's another thing. Well, first of all, at the beginning of the year, I was like, I'll always have tests on Wednesdays. That way it switches who's in person and who's online. But then I was thinking, I could just have it like Thursday or Friday one time, and then Monday or Tuesday the next time, and it accomplishes the same thing. So I've sort of abandoned that Wednesday idea. I'm still planning on having quizzes on Tuesdays, or Wednesdays rather. But they just like started this thing where on days when we have a 5-day week, so that doesn't include this week or next week or whatever, but on days when we have 5 days in the week, Wednesdays, they said that we're not supposed to teach new material. Now I could still like do quizzes on those days, and I think I'm still going to do exactly what we've been doing, which would be on those days we'll take a quiz and we'll play a game the rest of the period. But for other classes, it's kind of good, right? We don't have new material or whatever, so that's the deal.
We
with that.
basically don't have new material in here ever on Wednesdays. We're just
Right.
reviewing old.
Wait, so you're not gonna do no work Wednesdays, you're just gonna quiz?
It's not no work Wednesday, it's no new material Wednesday.
Yes.
So yes, we're still going to have a quiz, a 10-minute quiz, and then we'll play a game the rest of the period.
Okay.
I'm still going to do it the way I've been doing it.
Sounds pretty chill.
And if we have a test that week on a Tuesday or?
I won't ever have a test on a Wednesday. How about that? Because that'll be the whole period, and I want to give you guys some time to do other stuff if you have the need. So we won't do a test on a Wednesday, but we're still going to do quizzes on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And if it happens to be a Wednesday when we're not having a quiz, then we'll just play a game or something like that. Okay? Give it
Is there a reason why we're doing one thing on Delta Man?
Yeah, because we have a test Friday.
Well, that's not.
Tomorrow we're doing the test
Oh,
review,
yeah.
which is on Google Classroom.
Okay.
Okay, test Friday. So all we've done so far is just like this trig review. So we did from radians to degrees, changing back and forth. So remember, if you have radians, you multiply by 180 over pi to change it to degrees. And if you have degrees, you multiply by pi over 180 to change it into radians. Okay? Then we talked about quadrantal angles. And the unit circle. And the main idea there is any point on the unit circle has coordinates cosine theta, sine theta. So if it happens to be a nice convenient point, like right on the border between quadrants, you can find your trig values super easily just that way. Then we talked about reference angles, which are angles between the terminal side of the angle and the x-axis always. The most common mistake people make is that, like, if an angle is graphed down to here, they'll find this angle instead. That's not ever the reference angle. It's always this one between the terminal side and the x-axis, okay? Along with that, we talked about coterminal angles, and that's just used if you have an angle that's huge. You can just subtract 360 and get a smaller angle, okay? That has the same trig values, and it ends up in the same spot, and everything else is the same about it, okay? And then we did exact values of trig functions. So remember, there's that process where you find the reference angle, then you determine if it's going to be positive or negative by using the quadrant that it's in, right? And then you use special triangles to find the exact values, okay? And it's open notes, so you could have a table that has all these things in it. But I would encourage you to really try and learn it without the table, use your table if you want for quizzes and tests, but you need to know how to do this like in the future without using your notes. So I would encourage you to do that, even if you think you're not going to ever take math again, you know. Okay. Then we talked about reciprocal trig functions. So this is like secant, cosecant, and cotangent. You have to know which one goes with which. So remember, cosecant goes with sine, secant goes with cosine. That's confusing for people sometimes, but you just have to get it down. And then cotangent and tangent go together. That's kind of obvious. Like if I was inventing this stuff, I would say, let's have sine and cosine go together, secant and cosecant, and tangent and cotangent. That would make perfect sense. Or I'd call them something else, like a normal word instead of cos. But anyway, I don't have that much power. Then we did inverse trig function. So this is if you're given the value of the trig function, you want to find the angle. Okay, and then today we're going to just learn this little quick thing that's kind of based on that. It's finding an angle from a unit circle point. Which is really just the same thing as inverse trig functions. Same thing. Okay. And then that's it. That's what the test Friday is going to be about, is those topics. I'll review super easy. Tomorrow, like I said, it's going to be a test review for extra credit. It'll be posted on Google Classroom first thing in the morning. You have till 8 p.m. to do it. And it's just like normal. It's like there's 6 questions, and so you can get 6 points added onto your test. Any questions on that? One more thing. All right, so the test is on Delta Math. Delta Math just changed their interface for testing. And the way they changed it is in a good way. A lot of teachers, including myself, complained that that you weren't allowed to change your answer once you submit it. And so they changed it, so now you can change your answer. So if you have submitted an answer and you're going through, like checking your work at the end and you change your mind, there's a button now that says unsubmit answer. You just click it and enter another answer and submit it, and it's no problem.
That's really cool.
So it doesn't have to be perfect the first time, but just be aware that it's that does take some time off the clock. So if it's a 45-minute time test, you can't just change it. You'll run out of time eventually, right?
Right.
So so just but this way at least you can double check your work and change things if you feel like you need to. I think that's
Just sometimes I've like submitted things with like a comma on accident. I'm like,
Yeah. So, all right, any questions on that, on the test? Okay, so let me just talk about this last topic then, finding an angle from a unit circle point. Okay? It's super easy. They're going to give you a point that lies on the unit circle. Like, for example, suppose they gave us this point right here, whose coordinates are -1/2 radical 3/2. And they want you to find this angle right here, theta. So all you have to do is use inverse trig. You can just find, remember this is the cosine of theta, this is the sine of theta. You can just find the cosine inverse of -1/2. Find the angle whose cosine is -1/2, and then get the answer, right? So if you do this on your calculator, it's actually, yeah, it'll give you the correct answer right away, but sometimes it won't. So if I do like find the angle, first of all, this calculator is in radians. Let me change it back to degrees. So if I find the angle whose cosine is -0.5, 120 degrees. This is actually the correct answer. It's 120 degrees. It's a second quadrant angle. Everything checks out. Sometimes your calculator will give you the wrong quadrant. So the way you can get away from that is just don't put that negative in when you use your calculator. Just find the angle whose cosine is +1/2. That way your calculator will always give you the reference angle, and then you can just figure out the answer based on where the point is on the unit circle. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So in this case, if I just found the angle whose cosine is 1/2, I would get 60 degrees. But I know since the point on the unit circle is negative and positive, I know that's left and up. It's a second quadrant angle whose reference angle, this is the reference angle, whose reference angle is 60 degrees. So now I just have to do the math and take 180 minus 60. So the answer theta would be 120 degrees.
So when you say that it gives you the wrong quadrant, it's still like using the same reference angle though, right? So you
Correct.
still
Like, what if instead of that point, what if they were using this point, whose coordinates are negative 1/2, negative radical 3/2? My calculator is still going to give me 120, but at that point it's a little confusing because that's not the reference angle. So you'd have to take 120, figure out its reference angle, and then find the third quadrant angle that has that reference angle. So you can cut out a step if you just ignore the negative sign when you use your calculator. Then you automatically get the reference angle on your calculator.
So it's gonna give it to you and show you what quadrant it's in, or you have to figure that out?
no, you have to know what
You
quadrant
have,
it is.
it'll just give you the point. They're not going to give you a picture like this. They'll just give you
So
a
how do
point.
you know what quadrant it's in?
Because it's negative and positive.
Oh, okay.
So negative left, positive up. I know it's second quadrant that way. All right, let's do another one. Sometimes it won't turn out to be like an even angle like this, like a special angle. It might just be something random. Like suppose it was something like the point P has coordinate. Well, it has to be something that kind of works out. Like say it was like 3/4 and negative radical 7/4. Okay, it's the same process. I'm just going to find the angle whose cosine is 3/4 on my calculator, which is the reference angle, right? So if I do that on my calculator, the angle whose cosine is 3/4 is 41.4. So let's say they want it to the nearest 10, 41.4. Then figure out what quadrant it's in. Well, if I'm going right, then down, what quadrant am I in? Quadrant 4, right?
Mhm.
So just think about it. I really just want an angle where this angle right here is 41.4. I want to find that angle. So I'm going to take 360 minus 41.4. So if I just take 360 minus this answer, there's the answer. And then round to the nearest 10. This should be 318.6. So theta is 318.
Isn't that so much simpler than it has in the past?
Huh?
I feel like in the past it was much more complicated.
Finding a point, an angle from a point on the unit circle.
Yeah, like I feel
Well,
like.
the more that you understand like how the whole like quadrant thing works, the more it makes sense like when you do it.
Yeah, I agree.
No, so that's what it is.
I mean, I definitely understand it more now than I did then.
Now, if I wanted to, I could have used this instead, right? I'm like, I could have used this and done inverse sine. It would give me the same answer. Like if I took the angle whose sine is radical 7/4, I'll get the exact same reference angle, 41.4. I could have done it that way, but just be consistent. I mean, don't switch back and forth because then you might accidentally do sine when you're supposed to do cosine or vice versa. Just always do cosine or always do sine. Okay? Any questions on that stuff? All right, that's it for today then. So the homework is, it's on Delta Math, and I think it's just called finding an angle from a unit circle point. And then tomorrow there won't be a lesson that's recorded or live or anything like that. So if you're at home, you don't have to log in. Just do those questions, those extra credit questions. Submit your answers on and solutions on Google Classroom, and that's it. And then the test will be Friday, and there's no lesson that day either, obviously. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.
I still don't know where I have the